Hello there. What I have here is an IBM 5160 that someone I know picked up recently, and it is just completely not working. I think there might be a power supply issue, but surprisingly also the 5151 here is not working either. So today I offered to take a look at it because this was one of those computers that was really hard for me to get going at first because I just didn't have any parts, and I now have enough parts that I should be able to fully diagnose pretty much everything that's going on here so they know what they need to get to make this thing functional. So today we're going to take a look at a broken IBM XT 5160 and see what's going on. Yeah, it's going to be a fairly simple video because I'm filming this during the time that most people would be taking a holiday break, and yeah, the holidays have really trashed my schedule. So nice, simple video for today. All right, so to get started here, we're gonna go ahead and open it up and assess what all hardware is in this. This is an XT 5160, so it is not too surprising. It has a floppy drive and a hard drive. I have, well, actually, I don't even have to look into it. It's a half-height drive, so it's not gonna be the giant Seagate RLL style drive like was in mine, but it'll still be pretty early. I don't know if there's a date code on the back that I can look at to figure out exactly when this one was made. Maybe on some of the sheet metal inside. I swear one of mine was like 1983 or something. Doesn't really matter. We're gonna be looking in this thing to get a lay of the land of what's going on in there. And then we'll start testing it. We're gonna skip the step where we try to turn it on initially because I know it doesn't do anything. You will see nothing, which makes me think there could be a shorted tantalum or something in this. Although we will probably try and turn this on by itself because I think we should at least get a raster. This is one of those times where having a known good piece of hardware to compare against will be helpful. So we'll try turning this on and turning on a second one that I know works to compare it with. So yeah, I don't remember exactly how that works. I might have to plug it into something to get it to show any video, so we'll test that individually. But for right now, let's get the computer itself open. This computer has definitely been monkeyed with. The original screws are all missing, and the only one here is this thumb screw, which is definitely not original, and like a weird plastic metal hybrid part. Anyway, we'll get this out of here. I'll show this really quick, actually, before we continue on. They did not get a Model F, unfortunately, but they do have an ultra professional computer. It's a Unitech K151. It's got an AT-XT switch, so it will work with this machine, but it's not an original Model F. So I don't know why someone opened this too. Weird. But yeah, it feels, it's I don't know what switches they are offhand, but they feel all right. Probably like an Alps White or something like that. That's just mechanical, but okay. Getting in here, we can see a later hard drive controller card here, which goes to an ST225 half-height 5¼ drive there. We have the standard Tandem TM100 2A right there. That's strange. I don't know what this sticker is on the side that says Process Traveler down in there. That's really weird. That is not an original IBM display controller there. We'll double check that that's actually MDA because that could be why the monitor didn't work. Down in the machine, we have an AMD 8088. You can basically credit that part's existence for the AMD company being in the position that it is now. Because if IBM hadn't forced Intel to sublicense the 8088 part, yeah, they wouldn't have had anywhere near the market share. And here we can see it is a 64 to 256K board, which is the preferable board revision, although that would be for a 5150, actually. Now that I think about it, I think that's just what you would expect for an XT PC. So yeah, on that, if you don't know what an XT versus an, well, PC is, you have 8 ISA slots here. Including the slightly weird slot 8. I'm still not 100% sure what the deal is with that. So far, nothing is jumping out at me, but we haven't really gotten into this yet. Power supply, you know? I don't think that's original. That's definitely not what the one in my 5160 looks like. I've never seen this weird cage over the fan design. It's kind of clever because it means there's actual airflow. I think the 5160's original power supply, the fan was just flush up against the top of the case. That kind of makes sense. So that not being original makes me immediately suspicious of it. So we'll be testing that. And by testing it, I mean just replacing it with a good one after we confirm there's no shorts or anything. But yeah, so everything in there, mostly expected, but I think we should take out this display controller and see what it actually is first. Okay, that's a weird video card. I'm gonna have to try and look this thing up because it is very strange. There's an FCC ID. Yeah, let me look that up really quick here. So based on this page for this card on the retro web, that is an EGA card, not an MDA card. It is possible there are jumpers for switching the configuration. Let me see what the jumper documentation says here. Let's see, color and monochrome only. Okay, so if pins 2 and 3 are shorted, which they are not, then it would be monochrome only. Okay, so yeah, I was really not surprised about that because one of the 5150s that I bought, I believe it was a 5150 with an MDA card in it, and I got my 5153 with it, and yeah, the color and monochrome displays are not compatible with each other. So yeah, this hardware setup, or at least as configured, was never going to work, which again, one of the traps that you can fall into when trying to get into the IBM stuff like this. Like the PS2 stuff's way worse, don't get me wrong, but even with like the original AT-XT 5150s and this kind of stuff, there are some traps that you can get here. So yeah, that's definitely one of those things where I'm now going to dip into my hardware. We're going to switch out for a proper MDA controller, and we'll test the monitor with that because yeah, the monitor was never going to work with this. So any weird results I got with it before now are totally thrown out. So the monitor might actually be working fine. You know what? Let's just find that out now that we know that this card is suspect. All right, I've got my 5160 set up here with my Model F and my 5151 MDA monitor. I put purple post-it notes and all the stuff that is mine to make it a little more obvious when we're going along here. I just configured this for MDA. I had my 5154 EJ monitor set up in this before, so I needed to get it set up to test everything that we've got here. So I'm now going to just make sure I've got everything of mine configured correctly, and then we'll test the other 5151 to make sure that it's working now that we know that it was connected to the wrong kind of display controller. All right, here is the test of all of my hardware. So we should just see the post codes in the upper left. Hey, there we go. This is now going to boot off of my XT SD adapter here. We'll get into MS-DOS. Beautiful. It might be a little cranky. Nah, it's fine-ish. Okay, everything here is tested and working. Now let's swap in the other monitor and see if it works with a computer that's configured correctly. Okay, this is their monitor connected to my computer with the now verified functional MDA cards. So let's fire this up and see if this one works. Beautiful. All right. The first problem has been solved. The monitor works fine. It was just an EGA card in the mix, messing things up. Okay, so one thing down. Let's go ahead and test their keyboard now just to make sure that works, and then we only have to focus on the computer itself for the rest of this. All right, here we go. It works great. Okay, so monitor and keyboard both validated. If I pop off a key here, I can see the switches. There are some kind of green thing, which I'm being told by my viewers live is a Mitsumi miniature mechanical switch. It looks good, it feels pretty good, and it makes an audible sound, so I like it. It also has a diode under there, so the N key rollover might be pretty good, but, you know, being an XT, it won't really matter that much. Now, I'm really glad that I was able to test the keyboard, which may seem kind of unnecessary in the grand scheme of things, but getting something like a Model F is actually really expensive nowadays, so validating that you have a functional, working, compatible XT keyboard is just really nice, and without having a known working XT, you can't be sure that the XT keyboard itself is working because pretty much nothing works over XT other than these systems. So yeah, even though it may seem trivial to validate that, it is definitely something still worth ruling out as a problem. All right, moving back to the computer chassis themselves here. This one is theirs, this one's mine, and I wanted to call attention to the weird power supply. So this, I'm fairly confident, is an original IBM power supply. I don't know who the actual OEM is, but I don't think this is original, or is at least not an early revision like this one is, because I've definitely seen many IBMs with that power supply in it. This one is unfamiliar to me. So I'm immediately skeptical of this, but there are some other things that we need to check first before we just chuck this power supply in here to see if this one is bad. Because if we have shorted tantalums or something in this hardware, then that wouldn't be great to subject my power supply to that. So we're going to poke around a little bit more in the computer, and then we'll start trying to figure out what might be completely wrong here. Actually, upon closer inspection, bam, IBM part number and even a date on here. So 51st week of 1985. So it's basically from 1986 on there. So this was at least at some point an IBM recommended part, because that is the main sticker on there. So that's kind of interesting. So this is an original IBM power supply. That's really weird. So this is interesting. I've seen this tag on the speaker before on these IBMs. I don't know if it's just for that or if it's for the whole system or not. They usually don't have anything useful on them. But this machine has a date code on it, November 1985, which tracks with the power supply. So I am definitely thinking this is a very late 1985 machine, which is also kind of funny because I think the AT came out in 84. Not that that totally replaced this, but you definitely would have been nearly 2 years into the AT when this was bought. So beginning an initial look over of the motherboard, there are going to be a lot of things that I need to check. But one thing I noticed while looking over everything is we have two different brands of RAM in here. So this was clearly upgraded partway through its life. So it could be that one of these has failed. Just having the wider variety of manufacturers in here increases the likelihood that there will be a problem. But not there. Maybe IBM just split it. I don't know. So far, this machine is proving to be very confusing. So maybe these were all original. It's hard to say, but yeah, that does immediately give me pause there. But we'll come back to that. Hopefully that's not the problem. All right, I'm gonna start just taking this thing apart and looking over everything. And then once we get the individual pieces out, we'll see if we can find any shorted tantalums on anything. I am seeing some things I don't like. The pins are all messed up on the backside of the floppy controller IC. The one thing that is like really easy to tell and looks okay is the AT connectors are connected correctly. So those aren't backwards shorting out the power supply. So yeah, let's just start getting it taken apart and look at everything. All right, I am not gonna disconnect this from the MFM drive. I wanna leave those together. It's just kind of a habit because the controllers and the drives are slightly married together. That all looks good there. All right, I'm gonna pull the power supply now, and then I don't think I've ever actually removed a motherboard from a PC or XT, so this will be interesting, but I think I should. And it's important to note that these power supplies, maybe not this one, because I am not familiar with this one, but the other IBM power supplies, the 130 and the 65, will not power on if you don't have enough load, and I believe they also have short protection, so the machine will just not turn on. So on some machines, the shorted tantalums will fail gracefully. There's that. Let's actually unplug it from the motherboard. That's the power supply out. Why didn't they paint under there? Oh, so it can probably connect for better grounding. Okay, and removing the motherboard, which by the way was set for MDA with the jumpers here. It's set to 5 and 6 off. So yeah, this thing just, well, that one's mine. The other EGA card, this one was never going to work with that configuration, I believe. Pretty sure I removed all the screws. Yeah, I don't see any more. I think there's just some weird way you have to lift it up and out. See, I think the bend of the motherboard might actually be a problem here. What I can barely make out in here is that this piece is meant to slide, so you can see the rail track right there. So I think the whole board is meant to slide that way. But what's happening is the board is bent down so much, it's catching on the lip here as I try to slide it over. So it's stuck. There we go. Yeah, it just couldn't slide over enough. So yeah, it should have been able to slide out and over and just release. It's pretty slick design, if only the thing hadn't bent. I've never had one of these boards out to just look over. I never noticed this. No copying permitted. Good luck with that, IBM. Maybe you shouldn't have just used the Intel reference design for the motherboard then. But yeah, so we're gonna look over this, try to figure out some stuff. It's these tantalums here that are the most suspicious, so we'll see if there are any shorts on the 5-volt rails or anything like that. That'll give us an idea if there's a problem with the motherboard loosely. What I'm gonna do is I'm looking at the way that the power supply cables are colored. Red is 5-volt, yellow I think is 12-volt. Anyway, there's a bunch of voltages on here. There should be negative 12 volts as well. Oh yeah, it's got the rails listed on here. So we got plus 12, minus 12, minus 5, bunch of plus 5, plus 12, plus 5. Oh, those are for the power or hard drive connectors. So yeah, we can look at the rail ratings on there. Yeah, these are minus 5, plus 5, and then we got power good. I don't know what power good means, but so it's gonna be plus 12, minus 12. That's it. So yeah, we can check for shorts on the motherboard along those rails just to get an idea. All right, let's just measure each one of those to ground. So no. Hello. We have a shorted tantalum. I believe this should be 12 volts, and it is shorted to ground. So we need to figure out which ones are the 12-volt caps. It might be just C56 is the only tantalum capacitor on the 12-volt rail. So we're going to lift it. You would normally lift one leg of one of these, but these are the stupid 3-leg caps that have, I think it's negative in the center, then 2 positives on the outside. So basically we're just going to remove it, and then we'll see if it's shorted. And then if it is, the board might just work without that cap, but I'll also see if I have a suitable replacement on hand. But we can at least find out if that cap is shorted. All right, so this supposedly, C56 here, is the only cap on the 12-volt rail. So let's see if we can measure that as being connected there. So basically, all 3 pins on this should short to ground if it is that one. Yep. So these 2 caps here seem to be the only ones on the 12-volt rail. So we're going to remove this one because that's the tantalum, and we'll see if it's shorted. If it is, we could probably power the computer without it because, yeah, it's probably just a really basic little filter cap. It's not doing anything significant or analog. So we should be able to try powering the system without that and see what happens. So I'm guessing positive center, negative outside. Because, yeah, it's a little bit trickier on those outer pins. And it is shorted between the inside and outside legs. Now, if you've never seen one of these before, the tantalums on the IBM 5150 are a weird 3-pin device like this, and all 3 pins are now shorted. So the inside has failed short to the 2 outside pins. What that means is after removing that, I should no longer get, beautiful, a short between the 12-volt pin and ground. So with that, we most likely just fixed the computer. So let's get this thing, I guess, fully reassembled now and see if it'll start. Now, I just went looking for giggles, and I'm going to verify the pin out here that it's negative on the outside, positive on the inside, because I just found some 10UF 16-volt caps here that are aluminum electrolytic surface mounts. That should work just fine in there, and then I won't have to worry about this being replaced later. So we can put a cap back in here. It'll just be a surface mount, which will be kind of hilarious. But yeah, that should work for this. So outside should be ground. Yep. Yep. Inside not. That's 12. Okay. It was pointed out to me in chat that you can actually bend the legs up and away on this surface mount cap. So I could, in theory, mount this as through hole still. Dude, just a little regular tiny cap. It's hilarious. All right, I formed out the legs just a little bit to make this easier to mount. And that'll do. Feel like I'm the only idiot who's ever put an electrolytic in place of a tantalum, but that's what I got. All right, that'll hold that in. And there we go. That should, in theory, be fixed. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get the system put back together and find out if this works now. Why that motherboard has been physically modified. If she doesn't post, you'll need to check that modification. What modification? 640K memory modification? You're right. I was looking at the RAM chips earlier and I was thinking, why aren't those 4164s? And it didn't even occur to me that that could be a thing. So I was right. Those are not original RAM chips. So good job me, but I didn't catch why. Cool. So it's weird. But on the plus side, the person who owns this doesn't have to try and hunt down a RAM card as long as it works. We're going to start with just video, floppy, and motherboard. Okay, I'm going to take the MDA card out of the computer I tested the monitor with, and I'm going to put it in there because that's a known good video card. Just rule out the possible options or failure points here. So we'll just connect the keyboard, boom, and the monitor, and then we can fire this thing up and see if it works. And with that, here we go. Boom. It works. Boom. That computer is ready to rock. I forget what 601 is. Well, we'll look that up. It counted out all 640K of RAM, but yeah, I had a 601 error there, which is probably just booting or something. I know what the problem is. My gosh, how can this have every single possible issue? Seriously, this is like this was a trap meant to be a test of whether or not you know how to diagnose a 5160. Jeez, I'm not being pranked, right? There's no jumper for drive select 0 on the, the settings block for the tandem drive. So yeah, the drive is never showing up as DS0. That's what's going on. That's why it's not seeing the drive. Who removes the jumper on the drive? So for reference, here's another tandem drive. That's the jumper. And yes, it should be in position 3 there, it looks like. So yeah, I'll just make a new jumper, put it on that drive, and then it should be fine, I guess. Jeez, man. This is just rough. Okay. Boot it up one more time here, I guess. Okay, I should hear and see the drive attempt to seek here. Once it hits 640. Well, it didn't error. That was strange. I can't control alt delete out of basic, unfortunately. I'm gonna swap in a different tandem drive and try this. Okay, I will expect this drive to do something once it gets past the RAM count now. So bad tandem TM102A. That's unfortunate. Let's have a look, see if anything jumps out at me. So my jumper is in the correct position. It also stopped complaining about that. Connectors 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 20. Wait a minute. 12, 12. Dude, are you kidding me? Did they plug power into one of the head read circuits? I swear, this couldn't be more weirdly messed up. What? This is just, what? I don't know what this is. There's one more connector on here than there should be. 20 goes down here. The The drive is completely misconfigured. All of there's stuff not even connected to the board down here. What on earth? Let's pull the drive out. Let's take a look at it. My gosh, this is the worst computer ever. Dude, I swear, when I started this video and I said that it's really easy to get trapped on these IBMs, I did not know this thing was gonna be this badly built. I also will not be surprised if this floppy drive does not work after this. I think every single one of the cables on that tandem drive are wrong. Okay, so here is what is wrong with this drive, if it wasn't really easy to see inside the case. On the back of a tandem drive, there are a bunch of cables that go to the motor control and sensors and the heads and stuff. And on the drive that was in the computer, every single one of these cables is plugged in wrong except for this one. So, I think we lucked out, maybe. I believe this is power output from the power board here. So maybe it didn't send power down the wrong pins on the drive, but I'm going to rebuild this one to the same arrangement as this. But good grief, man, this is the worst. Okay, I think that's now correct. So 12, 12, 20, 20, 13, 13, 12, 12, 11, 11, 10, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8. And I have the appropriate gaps between the connectors, which they didn't have either. So maybe this will work. Someone in my chat was like, hey, you should check the front ones too. Yeah, they even managed to flip those. 5 and 6 are flipped on the front of this. Are you kidding me? Every one of them? Power, data, cards, get the monitor plugged in. I'm so glad I'm recording all this. No one would believe me if I said this happened. Okay. I think that's everything now. I'm gonna get my one good drive out of here so it doesn't catch any cooties or whatever from this thing. We should see this drive move now after it boots. I'm gonna flip it on the other side so we can watch the motors and stuff spin. If this is a little sluggish, I won't be surprised. This feels a little tight. You know, all the things like, maybe it could just use some minor lubrication. Yeah, that's not the kind of problems we're dealing with here. This is just someone maniacal reassembled this. But video, power, other power, floppy, all connected. Let's see if that drive is living or not. Yes! We don't know that the heads are good, though, but at least tried to read from the drive. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we still don't know that the head amps are dead or not, but that's a problem I can't really solve no matter what. So, okay, we're going to reassemble it. Oh my gosh, this has been just stupid. We're going to reassemble this. I will run a cleaning disk through the drive. Oh, that's right. We still have the hard drive to test. Okay. There is a drive 0 connector and a drive 1 connector. It looks like those are actually correct on here. The pins of the cables, 1 and 1. Okay, those are right. I don't know that they're right on the drive. We'll put this back in and we'll see if this boots with the drive. I've got all the existing tested, known good hardware back in. So now it's time to find out what the deal is with the hard drive. We'll see, because nothing else has worked out with this machine. That's for sure. I think we're ready. Let's find out what the status of the hard drive is. It's definitely spinning up. I have no idea what the drive just did, but it made a bunch of sound. All right, here we go. Tried to boot the floppy. I bet it's going to drop to basic. Yeah, okay. How do I make it boot from the hard drive? So I would expect the MFM controller to basically add a boot option ROM, like how the XT IDE works. So it should boot based off of that. But for all I know, the MFM controller is misconfigured and it doesn't work. All right, I'm just going to look at the drive controller card, see if anything jumps out at me or I can find information on it. There's a bunch of jumpers all over. It is a Western Digital card from 1984. So let me just look this up. see if I can find any configuration information on it. So I'm looking at the manual here, and specifically I'm looking at W6. 2.3 is the 8 head configuration. 1.2 is 16 head configuration and requires a custom BIOS ROM and a something other or another drive chip. Now there is a ROM here, and 1.2 is set. So it is possible that this jumper is in the wrong position, or maybe not. I'm not sure. But that one seems a little weird. Okay, now for the capacity. Oh, good, it actually tells us. So Seagate 225 is a standard format drive that it supports. Okay, it's 4 heads, 8 head configuration. What's with the head configuration? Yeah, it really seems like that W6 might be wrong. We currently have it set to 26 megabytes when it should be 20. So this is wrong. So I'm going to move that jumper to the correct position. It was on 3. I'm moving it to 4. So maybe between those 2 changes, we'll have made progress. Let's pop this back in and find out what happens. All right, with maybe the correct config, firing it up. I don't like those sounds of the head, but whatever. And then it gave up and it's booting from the floppy. Okay. Well, it tried to boot from floppy. Now it's going to boot from... What? What? Out of everything, I would have, like, expected the drive not to work. I mean, there we go. DOS 622. Dude, this is insane. I cannot believe it. Wow. Couldn't help myself. I looked up the card again. I found a different name for it to be sold under, and it again looks like it should be 2 and 3 closed for monochrome. And this version of this card is being described as MDA Hercules. So I think I'm going to try putting the jumpers on 2 and 3 and seeing if it can display on the 5151 using this card, because then I don't even have to give them the MDA card as a loaner. It'll just work with this. So that would be pretty sweet. So I'm just going to put this one down here and then move this jumper up because I think that's shorted. Maybe, you know, actually, I think I have that backwards. I think I need to move these 2 down. The document just says pins 2 and 3 shorted or not, and these are the ones, but they don't say whether down is shorted or up is shorted, so I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to pop this in there and see if it works. Nothing's going to happen to the MDA monitor if it doesn't, so this is a pretty safe test. But let's just see if we can make this card work in there. All right, here it is with 2 and 3 down and 1 up. If this doesn't work, I'll invert it. All right, we're good. The card was jumpered wrong for the monitor. The card that was in the machine does work with it. I'm going to wait for it to boot, and then I'm going to see if there's a park command for the hard drive as well, actually. I'm going to see if there's just a park command. Like this. Bad commander file name. Okay. CD, I think I saw tool. Oh my gosh, does spacebar not work? Oh, spacebar doesn't work. That's a problem. The switch itself does not work. I don't like that. Yeah, it seems like every other key works, just not spacebar. Run some deoxit down the side of the switch. Hopefully it finds its way to something useful. Man, that's really annoying. That was a space. Oh, no. That's a space. It did a space. Just when I think I'm done, it keeps pulling me back in. I bet I need to reflow the spacebar switch. This could also be why the keyboard was open before, because the warranty void sticker is broken. Ah, that's perfect. Okay, so this is the spacebar key, and I'm pretty sure that's correct solder joint. Pretty sure that, oh, well, alrighty then. We're gonna reflow all of those, and then we'll see. You know, it almost feels poetic that I finish this thing off by reflowing some switches, because that feels right. All right, I'm gonna do the Control-Alt-Delete keys while I'm in here as well, because something wasn't working right. Now that I know that this is a possibility, I'm just gonna do this as a precaution so I don't have to come back in here again. Oh, they're labeled on the back. That's nice. So, the only thing that did not have an issue was the power supply. When I told them I would work on it, I said, I bet the problem is the power supply, and I'll just swap that out with one of mine as a test, and then you'll know. Little did I know. And, oh, nope, not working. Okay, so there's something deeper wrong with that. How about Control-Alt-Delete? Nope. I don't know. This is probably the easiest part to replace, so we're gonna not worry about this too much, and it could also be that the switch just needs more deoxit worked into it or something. Not fixing the keyboard was eating away at me, and I looked at it again later after filming, and I found a new problem after looking over how the switches work, where one of the pads that was part of the switch, and I didn't realize, was actually cracked and lifting away from the traces. So I removed some of the solder mask away from the trace, bridged the solder over to that from the pad, and then the space switch worked. I did the same thing for the control key, bringing that keyboard back into fully functional operation. After that, I realized I hadn't actually tested the floppy drive after rewiring it, so I ran a cleaning disk through it, put in a new disk, and it worked just fine, miraculously. The calibration was good, and it worked with disks from other drives as well, so that floppy drive was all set to go. All right. That's all the cards installed. And the one dumb, weird hand screw back in. And there we are, all back together. And as I fired up, fully functional somehow. This was the absolute most cursed computer I've ever worked on. The only thing that I can come up with that would explain what happened is that it was given to a child or something to just monkey with. Or seriously, I was pranked somehow, which, I mean, just good grief. That was almost every single thing wrong with this machine that could have been just an absolute nightmare. I can't believe it came together as much as it did. Somehow including the hard drive, which is just insane. But yeah, there is a full repair of like nearly every single part in an IBM 5160. I started out the video by saying that these machines can be difficult to get started with when you don't know what you're doing. And this is just like every possible issue you could have that would be a full stop, no idea what you're doing kind of problem with these computers. So holy moly, I hope this video helps someone diagnose this stuff, because you could just see the kind of madness that can go wrong with these machines. That was just a ridiculous cacophony of failures there. But we got there in the end. It's fully functional. Somehow the hard drive works. It's even booting MS-DOS 622 right now, which is just hilarious. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, which for me was the last one filmed in 2024. It'll be the first in 2025. Here's to a good year. And if you did enjoy it, you may want to subscribe to be notified when I release a new video. If you want to help support the channel, you can find me on Patreon. But for now, that's it, and I will see you next time. Hopefully with a far less broken computer.